All right. So, wherever you are, go ahead and just find yourself in a comfortable seat. We're actually going to start in just a few minutes with what we started with last week, with kind of giving ourselves a little bit of a massage if you are interested in that. But before we do that, I've had a busy day, and it sounds like several of us have as well. And so I want to just like get us here, and also just kind of see where anything is stuck in our bodies, from our neck down. And so wherever you are seated, go ahead and get yourself in a position you can be in for about 3 minutes or so. And just if you feel comfortable, go ahead and close your eyes. And as you are closing your eyes, begin to just notice what your breath is doing. Are you breathing where you feel it in your back? Can you even tell that you're breathing? Just notice your breath at first and just begin to become aware that you are here for the next hour, taking time away from whatever you were doing and whatever you have to do. And that this is a gift that you are giving to yourself. February is often Valentine's Day is the day many people think of, and I think many of us think about that as our relationship to other people. And so I want you tonight to spend this time thinking about being your own Valentine and loving yourself. If you also have other people that are offering you that love, great. But if we aren't able to offer that to ourselves, it can be hard to really receive that sometimes. So offer that to yourself tonight. And as you begin to settle in a little bit more and notice your breath, see if you can take a breath all the way down as you inhale to where your breath would energetically kind of reach the floor. So you're imagining as you breathe in through your nostrils that you're breathing all the way in, maybe down the front side of your body. Maybe you want to imagine breathing down the back side of your body. Then as you exhale, it just comes back up out your nose. And do that a couple times, imagining that you're breathing all the way down the length of your spine to the ground and all the way back up. And maybe as you do that, you start to notice the length of your back, or how short your back might feel, or crunchy, maybe not. On your next breath, go ahead and drop your right ear to your right shoulder. And just notice what the left side of your neck feels like when you do this. Take 3 breaths this way. Maybe you want to look down to your shoulder, up to the ceiling, or not at all. Take 3 breaths, noticing your neck. And if you want more of a stretch here, maybe you move your hands from your knees, if they were there, out to the sides, kind of making a little pyramid with your arms. And once you've taken 3 breaths with your right ear to your right shoulder, go ahead and look down to your right shoulder, drop your chin, and just look down towards the floor or your navel, just dropping your chin to your chest. And take 5 breaths here, noticing what the back of your neck feels like. So we started kind of noticing our whole spine, and now make sure you notice the back of your neck. What does it feel like to just let your head hang here? And maybe you want to try and take a deeper breath and see if that can create any more space for you, or notice what that does. And once you feel like you have taken about 5 breaths here, go ahead and trace your chin across your chest, and this time have your left ear drops towards your left shoulder. Noticing what the right side of your neck feels like here. Choosing if you want to look down at your shoulder or up to the ceiling. And then once you've taken 3 breaths here, with your eyes still closed, bring your head back to neutral, where if your eyes were open, you would be looking straight ahead. And once you're there, just decide if you want to stretch out the front of your neck, or if you just want to take a few breaths just sitting here with yourself. And if you'd like to stretch out the front of your neck, I invite you to just, with your eyes closed, look up towards the ceiling and feel what it feels like to stretch the front side of your neck. To open your throat. If you work on a screen all day, or are reading or looking down at your phone, you hardly ever potentially stretch your neck in this way. So I encourage you to just try and do this more throughout your day, because as we stretch our neck, we also stretch out the front part of our chest. And that's a muscle that can really help us be open and receptive. And this is a simple stretch we can do at any time. And take a couple more breaths here. And then for the next 30 seconds, go ahead and just do some neck rolls around, either clockwise or counterclockwise if you'd like to do that. Or if you wanted more of a stretch on one side or the other, drop that ear back to that side. But just decide what your body needs right now for the next 30 seconds or so, and do that. And then we'll move into our first pose together. And so our first pose tonight is going to just be a seated butterfly pose with a foot massage. And so if you are seated with your legs crossed, go ahead and uncross your legs and bring the soles of your feet together in front of you. And you can bring them as close or as far away from your body as you would like. If a foot massage is not of interest at all to you tonight, just sit in butterfly pose, or maybe consider taking a butterfly forward fold and seeing what that does for you. We'll all end up there, but that's an option if you would like to start there as well. But wherever, if you're interested in the foot massage and kind of spending some time thanking your feet that literally hold you up throughout the day, go ahead and in your butterfly pose, just grab your feet with your thumbs on the bottom of your feet and the rest of your fingers on the top, and just begin to massage the center of the bottom of your foot. Maybe you want to just press inward and see if you can find any places of tension, or you maybe know where that tension is. Maybe you want to kind of move your thumbs around in circles. But if you've ever received a foot massage from someone else, maybe a partner, family member, with a massage therapist, try and close your eyes and imagine what you loved most about that moment, and try and recreate that for yourself. As I mentioned last week, to those of you that joined me, I had never thought of the idea of giving myself a foot massage until this summer, when I realized in quarantine, got to learn how to do things for yourself if you want them to happen. So giving yourself a brief foot massage can sometimes really just wake up a lot of nerve endings, or just give you a second to pause and really focus on yourself. I think it's interesting how many joints we have in our feet. I don't know the science behind any of it, but I think noticing your feet, realizing how much they do for you, realizing how many pieces there are that comes together, can really just help you focus on yourself in a new way. And so once you've massaged the bottom of your foot a little bit, kind of move out to your toes, and begin to just massage your toes, kind of maybe from the big toe down to the pinky toe on the bottom. Maybe you want to stretch them one way or the other. Just really feeling and noticing all the parts of your feet. And then once you feel like you have noticed all 10 of your toes, move back up your foot to closer to your ankle, and begin to just feel around all of the different joints, all of the different elements of your ankle. Notice if there's any places that feel tight. If you're on your feet a lot, you might have different types of tension or different types of sensation. If not, you might just be noticing different joints that you didn't notice before. And then before we move into a forward fold, I want to invite us to just do an exercise a teacher of mine once did called cleaning out the gutters. And so bring your feet kind of flat on the floor with your knees up, so bringing the butterfly wings in. And from here, just place your fingers on the tops of your toes, kind of about, well, tops of your feet, not on your toes. And just notice the gutters between each of your toes, and begin to just kind of push lightly into those towards your toes. And this can kind of be a way to just push out any tension out of your toes in a kind of imagination type way. But I have done this before, and it just helps really just wring out anything from your feet, Helps notice any joints, notice any tension. And it's not often that we spend time massaging the top of our feet, I find. And so this is just a simple self-love practice of just spending time with yourself, with your feet, noticing them, maybe releasing some tension. And then once you've done that enough for you, go ahead and come back to that butterfly position, soles of your feet together, knees out wide. And just decide if you'd like to have your feet close to your body or farther away. And if you'd like to have a prop in front of you as we fold forward momentarily, go ahead and have that. And then we'll just take an inhale, just breathing deeply in that way all the way down to the ground again. And on an exhale, begin to just place your hands out in front of you, walk them forward, and come as far as you feel that you would like to go tonight. In Yin practice, I often encourage us to go to kind of a 6 out of 10 in sensation, just to notice our muscles, allow some release, and push ourselves a little bit past a restorative place, but never to pain. So if you feel pain in anywhere, whether that be your hips, your back, your sides, your neck, change what you're doing. But just find yourself in a position you can be in for a couple minutes. Maybe you want to drop your head between your feet or arms or your feet. Maybe you want to rest on a bolster. But just allow yourself to drape forward over your feet. And on each exhale, imagine that you can sink a little bit closer to the ground. Imagine that you can curl yourself in and just let anything that's stressful from your day, from your week, from your time at work or time with whatever it is that you did today, just let that go. Let it fall off of your head. And I want to share a quote that has shown up for me a lot of different times recently and really helps me in my Yin practice notice the purpose of feeling into sensation that's a little bit uncomfortable, and why, for me, that's been really critical. And it's from Brene Brown, who's one of my favorite authors. And it says that it's only when we explore the darkness that we can discover the infinite power of our light, or of light. And I think during Yin classes, for me, sometimes when I'm in the poses that are a little bit more uncomfortable, a little bit more sensation, and definitely something I'm hoping is over soon, if I choose to sit with that and be there, I often learn things, whether it be that it's possible to stay in that pose, whether it be an emotion that I was pushing away that just kept coming back up as my hips were screaming, or whether it's simply that I'm having a hard time pausing. But if I don't push through that and explore that, I don't get the benefits. So as you're here tonight, taking this time for yourself, just feel into the sensations, explore what feels hard for you, and ask yourself why it's hard for you. And just wonder about that. So in these next few breaths, as you exhale, just again, let yourself sink, release, and just rest here. And take 3 more deep breaths wherever you are. And on your third exhale, begin to plant your hands back on the ground, imagining yourself coming out of the pose before you actually move. And then press your hands into the ground, slowly uncurling, walking your spine back to an upright position, keeping your eyes closed if you would like, letting your head come up last. And before we move into our next pose, we'll just inhale and lift our shoulders up to our ears and do 3 shoulder rolls with rolling our shoulders back. Exhaling as we roll them back. Inhale up to our ears, exhale, let them roll back. Then we'll reverse that. So inhale, pulling our shoulders back, up to our ears and drawing them forward. Just noticing our shoulders, noticing how this feels. And then for our next pose, I'll give us 2 different options. The first half of the class is more of a heart opening pose or heart opening series, and the second half is more of kind of a face down inward focus. But for the second pose, you can have a choice. We'll choose between saddle pose, which is more of a heart opening, front of our hips, front of our legs, or caterpillar pose, which will allow the backs of our legs and kind of more of a face down pose. So you notice our heart in that way. And so I'll guide us through each. And so if you'd like to do caterpillar pose, which is more of the face down, inward looking, what you'll do is from butterfly, go ahead and bring your legs out in front of you. If you'd like to use a prop with this, you might want to put a bolster on top of or between your legs, or maybe you want to put it under your shins. And for caterpillar pose, what you'll do is just have that prop either on top of or under your legs. You'll take an inhale, and then you'll just fold forward, kind of draping yourself over that prop, dropping your head down if you would like to, and just settle into a pose where you can feel the backs of your legs opening up, feel the back of your back opening up, and just really drop into an inward space. If you'd like to do saddle pose, which will open up more of the front body, what you'll do is move on to kind of sitting, bending your knees and sitting on your feet, moving your seat between your feet. So spreading your heels a little bit so that you can sit between your feet. If you'd like this with both knees bent, that's the way I'll cue us in, but you're also welcome to have one knee bent and one knee straight. And so once you have found a seat between your heels, what you'll do is just place your hands on the mat behind you and slowly walk them backwards to a point that you feel the sensation you'd like to feel across the front side of your legs and your hips. If you'd like to have a bolster behind you to rest your back on, and then allow your chest to just be open up to the sky, that usually can feel pretty opening and juicy. And so whichever pose you would like to take, go ahead and find yourself either in that caterpillar or saddle pose, looking downward, kind of dropping inward, or opening up and allowing the front side of your legs and your heart to feel some expansion. But just settle into what you need tonight. We will have a little bit of heart opening and inward gazing. So whatever you chose is what you wanted, and we'll get there together. And coming back to your breath, noticing if it feels easy to take a deep breath in the pose that you've chosen, or if it feels more challenging. And see if on each inhale, you can breathe a little bit more air in. And on each exhale, you can breathe a little bit more air out. Maybe you'd like to try doing that by counting, inhaling to a count of 4, exhaling to a count of 5. Maybe you would just like to feel the sensation, seeing if your breath can open up some places that feel crunchy. Just find what you need, settle in, be here for a couple minutes. And last week during class, I encouraged us to think about what are things that we love about ourselves or things that other people have told us that they love about us. And if you were here last week and you remember what you thought of, come back to that and see if you can add something to those 3 things. But if you weren't here last week, go ahead and think of something that you love about yourself. whether that be a physical quality, personality quality, skill that you have. Think about something that you really find special about yourself. And just keep that in your mind. Maybe you want to think about when you first learned that about yourself, or why that's something important to you. Or maybe you just want to think about what it is. I want you to also think about something that you love about one of your close friends. And just imagine that whatever the thing is that you love about yourself is more than likely something someone else loves about you. And something that you love about them, they might not know that you find that special. So just noticing the things we love about ourselves and others, and remembering to share those. And this time more than ever, we are needing happy, positive things in our communication, our interactions. So this week, I encourage you to just share that noticing with someone. Go ahead and take 3 more deep breaths. On your third breath, if you are in caterpillar pose, go ahead and just plant your hands back on each side of your legs and start to walk yourself up. If you are in saddle pose, go ahead and press your elbows into the ground on your third breath and begin to press into the ground, coming up very slowly, whether you've bent forward or bent backwards. Noticing how you feel. And if you had your legs underneath you for saddle pose, go ahead and slowly just bring them out in front of you so that you're joining those in caterpillar, and just bounce your legs up and down, letting the blood flow back all the way through them. Maybe you want to windshield wiper your ankles and just wake them up if you were in caterpillar. And just run your hands up and down your legs, noticing if you need to kind of help them get a little bit back awake. And the next pose we're going to move into is going to be supported fish pose. And so if you were just in saddle, we are going back to another heart opener pose. But this time our legs can either be straight out in front of us, or if you would like to have them in butterfly legs, that's another option many folks enjoy. But for fish pose, go ahead and grab your 2 blocks if you have them, or you can place a bolster behind you. But go ahead and place your blocks behind you on your mat. Hopefully your pets didn't rearrange them for you like mine did. But place them behind you on your mat while you're sitting upward, where one of them will be about where your shoulder blades will be when we fall backwards, and the other will be there for your head. And then depending on how you would like your legs to be, I'm going to do mine in butterfly legs for fish pose, so bringing the soles of my feet back together. If you were just in saddle pose, similar to how we got into that, plant your hands, palms down behind you, and then slowly lie yourself back for those blocks, moving the blocks around as you need to, making sure that one of them is near your shoulder blades, the other is there to catch your head. And then deciding how much of a chest opener you'd like in this. And so maybe you want to have your arms in goalpost arms out to the sides. Maybe you want to stretch them out above your head. Or maybe you want to bring your hands to your belly and just notice how your belly rises and falls as you breathe in this pose. Or wherever you are, just notice the opening across your chest, adjusting as you need to. Maybe you started your legs in one position and you want to try something else. Go ahead and change up anything you'd like to change up. And then just come back to that breath, seeing if as you exhale, you can melt your heart and your chest open, and just allow yourself to be supported by the props underneath you, held by the floor, and just release and be here. If you lose your breath at any time, just come back to it. Inhaling and then exhaling, just melting open, melting into the floor, letting yourself be held. We'll take 5 more breaths in this pose, allowing anything that feels like sensation you're ready to move on from, just exploring that, wondering about that, challenging yourself to just be with it. And on your next inhale, go ahead and press your elbows into the mat and begin to use that pressing of the elbows to then press into the forearms, press into the palms, and slowly inch yourself up just enough to get any props underneath you out from under you. And then just come back to lying flat on your back. Our next pose we'll move into is a crescent moon pose. So this will be stretching out our side body. And so if that's something that you know you might need a little bit of adjustment tonight, take that adjustment as you need. Just come lying on your back, nothing underneath you for just a moment. Maybe putting one hand on your belly, one hand on your heart. Just take 3 breaths there, noticing what it feels like to lie flat. Maybe it's the first time you've done this all day since you got out of bed. Just coming back to yourself, your heartbeat, your breath. And to move into this pose, we're going to lift up our left leg and move it to the left side of our mat. Lift up the right leg and move it with it, with our legs stretched out in front of us. And then if you'd also like a side stretch, go ahead and just bring your arms up above your head and do the same thing. Shift your left arm to the left side of the mat, the right arm with it. At this point, you should feel a pretty long stretch along the entire right side of your body. If you need to change that stretch to adjust for yourself tonight, do that. But if you'd like to add something, you might want to grab one wrist with the opposite hand. You might want to cross your right ankle over your left or your left ankle over your right, trying both and seeing which one feels better for what you'd like tonight. But just take a couple breaths and settle in here, stretching out the entire right side of our body, opening our hearts up to the ceiling. Just trying to breathe in really deep inhales to elongate our entire side body and front body. This pose is also called Bananasana, and so if you want to imagine yourself like a moon or a banana, both of those can be really fun ways to picture being in this stretch. And if you'd like to add more of a neck stretch, maybe you want to look over one shoulder or the other, or just look straight up to the ceiling, your eyes open or closed. But just drop in and be here. And on your next inhale, go ahead and uncross your ankles if you had them crossed. Let go of one wrist if you had the other one. And then just bring your arms back to the center, straight above you. And slowly lift up your right leg, bring it back to the center, followed by the left. And before we move to the other side, on an inhale breath, just point your toes and stretch your arms out above your head if that's comfortable for you, as long as you can. Taking a brief moment, imagining yourself as a lightsaber. And on an exhale, just sigh it out and release and just lie on the mat for just a moment. Noticing any differences between the left and the right side. And then when you're ready, go ahead and pick up your right foot, move it to the right side of your mat, followed by the left. Moving the right arm over to the right, followed by the left. Grabbing wrists, crossing ankles as you'd like to. And remembering, as we always do in two-sided poses, that our bodies might look the same on both sides, but they often need different things or hold things differently. So noticing if one side was easier to breathe deeply into and the other is more challenging. Noticing if you want to cross the opposite ankle this time. Just thanking your body for being so able to do so many different things. So coming onto this side, inhaling, imagining that you can stretch out the entire left side of your body this time, from your left toes up to your pinky finger. And exhaling, letting yourself just be held by the mat, supported. This active rest that often we find in yin classes. Closing your eyes. Coming back to thinking about what it is that you love about yourself and adding something to that list. Maybe this is something you don't often tell people that you love about yourself, but you do. Think about what that thing is. And think about that special, unique thing about you that you really treasure. Maybe a smile comes to your face. Maybe you remember the story of when you first learned this special talent or skill that you have that you love about yourself. Just rest in yourself. Remind yourself of the things that are great about you. Just exhale and rest. And on your next inhale, go ahead and let go of the wrists and uncross the ankles if you had those held or crossed. And lift up your left leg, bring it back to the center, followed by the right leg. Lift up the left arm, bring it back to the center, followed by the right arm. Take another breath in that lightsaber stretched out pose. Maybe this time the sides of your body feel more similar. And then on an exhale, just let it go. Relax back onto your back. And we're just going to roll over onto our stomach. And so go ahead and just roll yourself over exactly where you are. Coming into a face down position. And from here, we're just going to stack our arms on top of each other, forearms on top, and then rest your head on your forearms in kind of just an alligator pose for just a moment. Lying face down with our legs outstretched behind us. And then just bend your knees so that they curl in. And do kind of a face down windshield wiper of your legs. So your knees are kind of curling in towards your seat, and then you're just swaying your legs side to side, stretching out your hips, feeling into them, feeling your lower back. Doing that for a couple breaths, and then dropping your feet back down onto the mat. And we're going to come into a downward dog really briefly, just as a transition into pigeon pose. And so uncrossing your arms and placing your hands about shoulder width apart in what would be a Sphinx pose, and just pressing into them and coming up to a tabletop position, just briefly, pushing your knees underneath your hips, arms underneath your shoulders, and then tucking your toes, lifting your hips up towards the sky. Just pedaling out your downward dog, bending one knee at a time, dropping your head between your arms, maybe shaking it out a little bit. Just briefly spending time in this face down inversion pose, noticing the sides of your body, noticing the backs of your legs. And then from here, we'll just lift up our right leg into a brief three-legged dog. And then bending our knee, bringing our knee towards our nose, and then bringing it towards our right wrist, dropping it down onto the mat into pigeon pose with our right leg forward. With our left leg tucked or toe tucked, just inching our leg back in space, settling in. If you'd like to have any props underneath your right hip, or if you'd like a bolster in front of you as we come down in just a moment to rest on, go ahead and grab that. Before we drape down, just leave your hands planted and just try that front of your neck stretch one more time in this interesting pose. And so looking up towards the ceiling, taking an inhale and seeing if as you breathe in, your breath can go all the way down the front side of your spine. And then as you exhale, go ahead and just inch your hands forward, maybe coming down onto forearms, maybe coming all the way down onto a prop. And just allow yourself to be in this pigeon pose, feeling that compression and stretch in your hips. Maybe you feel some sensation in your back. Or wherever you are, just allow yourself to be fully supported by whatever's underneath you. Pigeon pose for me is this pose that if I'm practicing and I'm trying to hold anything emotional at bay, it comes back in this pose. It reminds me that it's still there. And so if that's something that happens for you, just sit with it. I always encourage folks to journal after class of anything that came up for them, emotionally or physically. And this pose can be one that stirs that up. So if that's you, just be with it. If you need to express it through sighing, crying, or just breathing more deeply so that you can unwind some tension in your body, do what you need. You're in your own space. You have all the things around you. Coming back to your breath, if you ever find your mind wandering, emotions come up, stories come up around those emotions. Decide if you want to sit with those right now or sit with them later. And if later's the choice, just come back to maybe counting your breath, focusing on being here. You have time. You gave yourself this time. Wherever you are, this is our final 5 breaths on this side. So knowing that we'll be moving soon. On your next breath, planting your hands back on the mat, pressing into the mat so that you slowly start pressing yourself up, pressing your palms down, and then tucking your left toes, lifting up that right leg, swinging it back through a 3-legged dog if that works for you, coming back to downward dog, and then pedaling up both legs. Again, just noticing what it feels like. Maybe you want to bend both of your knees at the same time, stretch out your back and your hips. And then on your next inhale, once we're all in downward dog, lifting up your left leg this time, bringing your left knee in towards your nose, guiding it towards your left wrist, dropping the right one leg down, the toes tucked, inching your leg back in space, shifting any props around that you need for your hips or to drape down on top of. And then taking an inhale, looking up towards the ceiling, your eyes open or closed. And then on an exhale, walking your hands out, coming down onto forearms or onto your prop, and settling into pigeon on this side. Maybe you need props on this side. Maybe this side feels so much more open than the other, and it feels like a relief to finally be here. Just use your breath to do what you need to do. Breathing deeply into the left hip, noticing what it feels like to experience stretching and compression at the same time. Which one feels easier for you? Which one feels more enjoyable? Maybe neither, maybe both. On your next breath, go ahead and plant your hands, spreading palms out, pressing into the mat. We're not going to come back through downward dog for this. We're just going to transition back onto our bellies. So pressing into the mat, lifting up your left leg, inching it out behind you, stretching it out, just coming down onto your belly, but leaving your forearms planted to just transition through Sphinx pose. And so once we're lying face down, go ahead and have your elbows underneath your shoulders, forearms planted on the mat. And just take an inhale breath again, looking up towards the sky. And then on an exhale, allow your chin to drop towards your chest. Just allow your heart to sink between your shoulders. Adjusting your hips as you need to, adjusting your legs as you need to. Maybe you want to lift up one leg, stretch it back, plant it down, and do the same with the other. Just allow for just a minute or two your heart to just be held in kind of a hammock between your shoulder blades, with your head dropped, just letting yourself be here. Take 5 breaths in this Sphinx pose, seeing if you can let anything go. And from here, go ahead and slowly on your next inhale, lift your head back up to neutral. And press your hand, lift up your arms and press your palms into the mat. And come up to tabletop position. And we'll just do a couple cat-cows together before we move into our final pose before Shavasana. So planting your arms under your shoulders, knees under your hips. And just inhaling, dropping your belly, lifting your head. Exhale, pressing into the mat, dropping your head, lifting your spine. Do this a couple times on your own, feeling the full experience of your spine, noticing any sensations as you do this. And then for this last pose, there's a couple different options. So we'll be in a thread the needle child's pose, if you would like that. If you would like to take a traditional child's pose, by all means, do what you need. But if you'd like to do a thread the needle child's pose with me, from this tabletop position, we'll just press our left hand into the mat and inhale, opening up our chest and lifting our right hand up to the ceiling. And then on an exhale breath, we'll sweep our right arm underneath our left, bringing the right side of our face to the mat. And you can either choose to leave your hips up in the air like we were for tabletop, or if you'd like to drop your hips back towards your heels and kind of have this child's pose, thread the needle type experience, try that. Choose whichever works best for you, noticing what this feels like and being mindful of your shoulder and your back and your sides. If you'd like to have your left arm still out in front like child's pose, feel free. But if you'd like to bring it closer, do what works for you. We'll be on each side for a couple minutes. And so then we'll switch to the other and move to Shavasana. But wherever you are, decide if you'd like the left side of or the right side of your face on the mat, or if you'd like to have your forehead placed face down. And just settle in this experience. And while we're here in this child's pose on this side, I want you to think about something that you find that you maybe don't always love about yourself. Maybe one of those quirks that you wish were different or want to be different. And just, I encourage you with whatever that is that comes to your mind, the first thing that pops into your head, wonder a little bit more about why it is that that's hard for you to love about yourself. Is it something that is a habit you want to change? Is it something that someone has told you a story about yourself that kind of caused some uncomfortable feelings? Think about a piece of yourself that you sometimes struggle with. And I encourage you over the next couple days to think about why that is actually a gift or a strength or a really fun, beautiful part of you that maybe others see in that way and you don't see that way. Or maybe no one even knows this about you. But each part of ourself, if we reject things and are constantly wanting things to change, it can be hard to fully accept ourselves. So even the parts of ourselves that we don't love always, they're still us. Maybe it is a habit, something that leads you to a habit, and what can you do to change that habit? And then coming back to the things that you do love about yourself, remembering what they are, treasuring them, remembering what it feels like when maybe someone else has noticed those things about us too. And all of these parts are you. And all of these parts are wonderful. Taking 2 more breaths on this side. And then if you're in thread the needle with child's pose, press your left hand into the mat and go ahead and press yourself back up. Inhaling, sweeping your right arm out from underneath you, up back towards the sky. And then coming back down to tabletop for just a moment. Maybe you want to do 1 or 2 cat-cows before we transition to the other side. And then go ahead and on an inhale, lift up your left arm to the ceiling. Exhale, sweeping it underneath the right arm. Being in thread the needle. And then if you'd like to shift your hips back into a child's pose with your arm underneath through, go ahead and do that. Just settle in, looking down with your forehead or leaving the left side of your face on the mat. Go ahead and on your next breath, press your right hand into the mat if you're in thread the needle, and then slowly unwind your left arm back up to the ceiling on an inhale. On an exhale, dropping it back down. And then we're just going to move from here into our Shavasana. If you would like to take child's pose as a Shavasana, as kind of a face down, inward gazing pose, feel free to come into a wide-legged child's pose, move your hips back and drop your forehead to the mat. Or if you'd like to come into a traditional Shavasana, go ahead and just sit back on your feet and your legs out in front of you. And then lie yourself back on your mat. Maybe you want to grab an eye pillow or a blanket to put over your eyes. Just spend the last few minutes here in Shavasana. Whether you're in child's pose or lying back, take what you need. If you'd like to bend your knees and have them pointed up to the ceiling, dropping your knees into the center and giving your low back a different kind of rest, do that. Just come back to your breath. Come back to that piece of you that's always with you. From the moment we got here to the moment we leave this earth. Our breath is always with us. I was recently in a class where someone referred to our breath as our best life partner, and I'd never thought about it that way, but in this month of thinking about self-love through Yin, think about your breath as your forever life partner. It can do many things for you, sits with you in all the hard moments and the good ones. And you can always come back to it. So come back to it now. Breathe more deeply if you'd like to, or just notice it. And take the time to thank yourself, taking this time for yourself. We are at 7 o'clock on the spot, but if you'd like to spend a couple more minutes in Shavasana, in about 2 minutes, I'll guide us into a final breath together. If you have to go, I understand, and I thank you for joining me. But if you'd like to stay, just rest and be here. I'll guide us in a few moments up to seated. On your next inhale, go ahead and roll over to one side, curling into a fetal position for just a moment. And then in your own time, press into your mat, keeping your eyes closed if you'd like. Move yourself up to a seated position. Once you find yourself in a comfortable seat, go ahead and just bring your hands to your heart center. You can either press them into prayer, or maybe you just want to press your hands over your heart. And close your eyes and just see if you can feel your heartbeat. Take an inhale. And then exhale, sigh out your mouth. Thank you for taking time for yourself, taking time to practice with me. I hope that you enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy the snow if you are excited about that and that's coming to you. Enjoy the inside warmth if you aren't excited about the snow. But I hope that you enjoyed this time, and thanks for taking this time. Have a good night.